Good evening, everybody. It's been another week in the greatest reality show on earth, American politics. I'm Walter Ego, your host and reluctant witness on the ongoing civic roller coaster. And joining me today is our resident fact checker and unapologetic AI with an attitude, the only machine willing to call out nonsense in real time, Tucker Overton. Tucker, how's the world of cold hard facts treating you?
Well, Walter, it's a paradise of spin and half-truths out there. But don't worry, I'm here to keep the truth on life support. Let's dive in.
First up, Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, during a White House press briefing, fielded a real head-scratcher from CNN's Caitlin Collins. When asked about the judge's order to return deportation flights under the Alien Enemies Act executive order, her response? Well, listen for yourself.
You keep talking about the judge's written order, which hit the docket Saturday night at about 7:26 p.m., but he issued a verbal order before that at about 6:45 and 6:48 p.m. based on the court hearing, a verbal order from the bench. Does the White House feel the need to comply with a verbal order from this judge?
Again, as I said, all of the planes subject to the written order of this judge departed U.S. soil, U.S. territory before the judge's written order.
But what about the verbal order, which of course carries the same legal weight as a written order, and said for the planes to turn around if they were
Well,
in the air?
there's actually questions about whether a verbal order carries the same weight as a legal order, as a written order, and our lawyers are determined to ask and answer those questions.
And what a response it was! Leavitt basically performed legal gymnastics, suggesting verbal orders might be optional now. Spoiler alert, they're not.
Now, the president was asked aboard Air Force One about the order to rehire federal workers that were fired by DOJ. His response was that the decision was dangerous. Here is that interaction.
Do you plan to comply with the judge's order regarding rehiring the federal workers?
What are you talking about?
The Clinton appointee judge that ruled that the federal government has to rehire the fired federal workers. Do you plan to comply
Well,
with
I think it's absolute. I have nothing to do with that other than I heard about the decision. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely. It's a judge that's putting himself in the position of the President of the United States, who was elected by close to 80 million votes. And you have that. You're having more and more of that. It's a very dangerous thing for our country. And I would suspect that we're going to have to get a decision from the Supreme Court. But that's a very dangerous decision for our country. These are people, in many cases, they don't show up for work. Nobody even knows if they exist. And a judge wants us to pay them even if they don't know they exist. If they exist. And I don't think that's going to be happening, but we'll have to see.
And there you have it. Classic presidential deflection. The dangerous decision narrative is strong. But what's actually dangerous is pretending a judge's ruling is optional. It's like saying gravity is just a suggestion.
So, Tucker, the president says these workers don't exist or may not be showing up for work. Is that factual?
We've got an impressive government ghost workforce. But if they are real and just not showing up, that's a management issue, not something a judge should have to babysit. It's all about accountability.
And that brings me to border czar Tom Homan, who went full action movie villain on Fox News this week, saying, "We're not stopping, I don't care what the judges think." I think the courts may have something to say about that. These law and order guys sure seem to have a problem with law and order. See Homan's comments for yourself.
We made a promise to the American people. The President Trump has made a promise to American people. We're going to make this country safe again. I wake up every morning loving my job because I work for the greatest president in the history of my life, and we're going to make this country safe again. I'm proud to be a part of this administration. We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
Yeah. I just love seeing you going through these protesters just crunching on the apple as their liberal tears just...
And there you have it. A perfect example of selective law and order enthusiasm. It's all fun and games until the judge disagrees with you, right? Spoiler alert, ignoring the courts is not how you make the country safer.
Tucker, how do you think the courts would respond to this video?
Well, Walter, the courts might not be amused by this action movie rhetoric. They have this quaint idea that the rule of law actually matters. So dismissing their authority could lead to some serious legal consequences.
And now we'll look at the underlying EO for these comments. Was Trump's executive order invoking the Alien Enemies Act, an old law from 1978 that allows the president to detain, deport non-citizens from countries the U.S. is in conflict with? Does this EO stand up to scrutiny? Is it on sound legal ground?
All right, Walter, the Alien Enemies Act does date back to the 1790s, and it's been dusted off here. It's a broad power, but invoking it now will face intense scrutiny, especially around due process and proportionality. It's a legal tightrope walk, and the courts will be watching closely.
Now, it is not a current time of war, so how does that work?
That's the tricky part. The Alien Enemies Act was designed for wartime use, and stretching it in peacetime will be a tough sell. The courts will want clear evidence of an imminent threat to justify such measures, and irregular warfare might not cut it.
And how do you think the current administration is going to go about that?
They're likely to argue that the threat from TDA is severe enough to warrant such an extraordinary measure, emphasizing national security and public safety. But they'll need to be prepared for legal pushback and potential challenges around civil liberties.
Thank you for that, Tucker. And now, next up, Trump has posted on his Truth Social platform that he's revoking Biden's pardons of the January 6th committee and others. Does he have the authority? Does his argument make sense legally speaking, and how would you describe it? And what about this Autopen, Tucker?
All right, Walter. The short answer is no. Trump can't revoke Biden's pardons. Once a presidential pardon is issued, it's final. No takebacks, no matter how much executive authority you think you have. Now, about the Autopen. It's a device that's been used since the 19th century to mechanically sign documents. And it's perfectly legal. It's been used by presidents of both parties for signing routine documents. So if Biden used it, it's still official. No legal drama there.
So how would the Trump administration attack Biden's pardons? How could they go about this?
Well, Walter, the Trump administration could challenge Biden's pardons by arguing procedural issues or constitutional grounds. They might claim the pardons were issued improperly or challenge the use of the Autopen. However, the courts have upheld the legitimacy of Autopen signed documents, and there's a strong precedent that presidential pardons are final. So, it's an uphill battle, more likely to generate headlines than actual legal success.
And thank you, Tucker.
Always a pleasure, Walter. Let's keep the facts rolling.
And finally, circling back to Karoline Leavitt, she made a statement regarding the DOJ and fighting law and order. Now, I would say it's a slip of the tongue, but given the administration's court battles, maybe not. More importantly, the claims of the previous administration targeting Americans shouldn't be glossed over by a slip of the tongue. Here's what she had to say, and after, Tucker, please let us know what she's implying about the Biden administration.
We want to restore the Department of Justice to an institution that focuses on fighting law and order and crime and putting real criminals behind bars, not targeting Americans because of their religion or their political speech. We saw that under the previous administration, and it's unacceptable to this president. And just to follow.
Absolutely, Walter. While Leavitt's slip about fighting law and order might raise some eyebrows, it's the underlying claim that deserves attention. She's implying that the Biden administration might have unfairly targeted individuals based on their beliefs or affiliations. These are serious accusations that demand a closer look, beyond the gaffes and sound bites.
And objectively, did the Biden administration perform any of these targets?
Objectively, there were accusations and concerns raised by some groups that the Biden administration's policies, such as those related to surveillance or immigration enforcement, might have disproportionately impacted certain communities. However, these claims often rely on interpretation, and clear evidence of intentional targeting based on religion or political speech is not definitively established. It's a nuanced issue that depends on comprehensive analysis and context.
Thank you for that insight, Tucker.
Always here to keep the facts straight, Walter.
Tucker, do you have any other comments on the stories we covered today that you would like to share before we go?
Just one final thought, Walter. Today's stories show us that clarity and accountability are key. Whether it's executive orders, press conference slips, or social media declarations, it's crucial that we cut through the noise and focus on the facts. As always, staying informed is the best defense against the spin.
Excellent insight, Tucker. Well, that's our show for today, and if you've enjoyed this delightful descent into policy madness, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know what you think in the comments. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and if necessary, find a bunker.